Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Matt Wilson SFL Kickoff Show. I'm Mike Daggs. He is Gerald Smith. Behind the scenes is our production crew of Cameron Irvine and Ron Haynes. We want to welcome you to Week 5 of Season 24 in the Simulation Football League. Gerald, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. You know what I don't have? I don't have 4 weeks of SFL stress because I don't really do that anymore, which is good for
you're
me.
a retired man.
I see, guys across the league and players across the league, even yourself, been stressing over the first, third or quarter of the season so far. I don't have that luxury, and it's not really a luxury.
Stress-free is
Very
the way
much,
to be.
very much so.
Appreciate you all being here tonight. We see Wade Phillips in the chat commenting first tonight. The Lake Man there. Not only did the Lake Man beat me last week, but now he disrespects me by listing
He got it right. He got it right.
Smith and it should be Daggs and Smith. Let's at least be alphabetical about it.
No.
Unbelievable. Anyway, let's talk about last week as we let week 4 fall into the distant memory. It just needs to be gone. But let's recap it. We started the week off last week. We called the Chicago Warriors and the Minnesota Legend game. Chicago still just really struggling this season. It was a Central Division battle. It was an opportunity for Chicago to try to, claw their way back into things, and they fell to 0-4 once again, losing to Minnesota 23-3 in that one.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. They didn't even. I don't know what's going on. They got to get something back together because we did call that game right, and it wasn't even close. And we've seen what the Legend defense did, amounting 36,000 sacks in one game. It was something to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great week for home teams. It was 8 of the 10 games played, or 8 of the 11, I should say, if I could do the maths. 8 of the 11 games played were all won by the home teams. We had the DC Dragons beating Los Angeles 24-10. Arizona took on Nashville. Speaking of a team that's just really struggling this season, the East Division Nashville Tempo, we'll talk about a little bit more later on. 0-4 now after losing that one 30-17. Nashville, a team that started off 5-1 last season. And then, you infamously had them on our Pretenders versus Contenders segment. You called them Pretenders. They only won 1 game the rest of the season, and they haven't won since.
I mean, when you lose to a terrible Louisiana team, we were terrible last season. We somehow amounted to 6-6, but we weren't very good. And it's just kind of carried over. I mean, they haven't won a whole lot since. They could be approaching close to double digits now that they've. Yeah, haven't won games.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get it turned around. They just they got to figure out something. Whatever's going wrong, got to figure out how to make that go right. Speaking of teams that figured out how to make things that were going wrong go right, we'll talk about them even more at length too. Queen City Corsairs, currently at 3-1 in the North. Not only are they 3-1, which they won 0 games last season, 3-1 in the North right now. They started off this game last week down 21-0.
Yep, and like you said, we're going to go in depth about it. I thought it was done.
Oh, yeah.
It was, I'm like, you got to pick right. Nope, I got it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, we both did. We'll get into our picks later. Yes. That was embarrassing. Clearly, we don't know what we're doing. If we had just picked all the home teams, we would have done better than if we actually had put thought into it like we tried to do.
Yeah, my thought process was flawed.
It
continues to be flawed.
Houston took on Mexico City, the defending champions, losing their first game since midway through last season, 13-16 down to Houston. Lexington took on Denver, just absolutely shellacked them, really, 35-13. Couple other closer games, 21-6 Vancouver over Atlanta. Baltimore, we'll talk about Baltimore a bit more too, but losing to the Pittsburgh Riverhogs, 38-17. So Baltimore's 2-2 right now. It's kind of unheard of, and Carolina with a last-second touchdown to take down the Fort Worth Toros, currently in last place in the South Division. So let's leave Week 4 in the rearview mirror. Let's talk about what we've got coming up here in Week 5. Got another great week of action. Unless you are Atlanta, D.C., or Minnesota, they all get a break this week. But things will kick off here in just about 40 minutes' time. We've got Carolina at Charleston, the Battle of the Carolinas, if you will. That's going to be an interesting matchup that we'll break down in some good detail. Charleston just obviously struggling so far this season, and Carolina doing quite well. So we'll see what happens between those two. Also in this 8 o'clock block, kicking off at 8:15, a pair of 3-1 teams, Lexington at Albuquerque. That's going to be a fantastic game. Cameron Duty and Rochelle Colston on the call. And that's it for Friday. On Saturday, we'll have some games kicking off at 6:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time. Mexico City at Fort Worth, a South Division clash with the infamous duo of Colin Northrup and Rick Northrup. And at 6:45, we've got Queen City at Vancouver. Eric Vincent and Eddie Gage on the call. At 9 p.m., we've got Bossier City, another team that's doing fantastic this season, currently leading the South Division. Bossier City at Indianapolis. Chad Rowland calling a game for his former team, and joined with Anthony Ellison in the booth. Baltimore at Chicago with Ramos Lynn and Baron Wentz at 9:15. Baltimore, like we said, currently at 2-2. Chicago at 0-4. Normally, you would circle that game and say, "Oh, this is going to be a really tough one." Hopefully, now for Chicago, maybe they're looking at it saying, "Maybe here's our chance."
And it might be a pull upset. I don't anticipate it really happening.
Yeah,
I mean, because they just haven't.
they haven't proven it yet. You got to score,
and they haven't looked well. If they were playing like competitive football, it'd be something different. But they really haven't played competitive football so far this season.
Yeah. That's our Saturday block. On Sunday, we've got Nashville at Florida. It's an important game for honestly both of these teams. Florida right up there with Carolina at the top of the East Division, and Nashville down there at the bottom. They've got to win a game to get back in. And Ron Cochran, the quarterback, will be sitting out. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Tyler Falk, Mike O'Neill on the call. And at 6:45, we've got Denver at Pittsburgh. Jacob Clear and John Warren. Pittsburgh finally looking like maybe they've got things figured out. As they took Baltimore to the tool shed, as they say.
It was unexpected. Look, everybody knows that I love me some Pittsburgh. I call it Louisiana North.
Yeah,
I did not expect that result to happen.
Nope.
And look, and maybe I need to be careful with my picks because I picked them the first 2 weeks of the season,
you did.
and they lost every one of them, and I pick against them and they win.
So a new curse, you think?
I guess.
Maybe
I don't
Carolina
know.
is relieved of the curse.
We're gonna do some testing with picks this weekend and see how it works out.
We'll find out. At 9 p.m. on Sunday, we've got Houston at Washington, another couple of teams that are doing fantastic. I got to see Houston up close and personal this past week, and Washington, exceeding expectations in pretty much all regards. I think, most people said, well, it's formerly Motor City. They never did good, and, there's a bunch of carryover. We talked about Washington quite a bit earlier on this season on the show about how much change there was, in particular on defense. Clearly, it's working for them as they're currently undefeated, at 3-0, getting things done. Oklahoma City at Los Angeles with Brandon Walters and Jacob Clear on the call at 9:15. And Tyler and Brett on that Houston-Washington game. I don't think I think I forgot to say that part. Sorry, guys. This
Not
week,
really.
not really. Guy's just an intern. It's an intern and a Canadian. But I'm kidding. Love you both. This week in the SFL on Monday night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, and of course the Monday Night Spectacular at 8:15. Sin City at Arizona with Cameron Irvine, Charles Doherty. Great week of action. Let's start breaking this down and get into some of these games. We talked about how good Queen City is doing. Speaking of another team that's doing quite well compared to how they did last season, it was a down season for Vancouver, uncharacteristically a down season for Vancouver last season. Now these two teams, who are both on a rebound, go head to head. These are two of the longest tenured teams in the league, and they will face off this weekend. 39 combined seasons between the two of them. This is our game of the week. Queen City at Vancouver. Surprisingly, even though there's been 39 seasons of history, they've only met 5 times in the past. And this will be the first time in over 2 years. Not 2 seasons, over 2 years.
That's about 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's good math. I can see you down there counting on your toes. Anyway, so Vancouver, they currently lead the series 3-2. And at this point last season, Queen City was 0-3. Vancouver, they were 1-2. Right now, Queen City is 3-1. Vancouver is 3-0. Very impressive turnaround for both of them. Queen City is tied for the division lead with DC and Lexington, who is also, both of those teams are at 3-1, with Baltimore behind them at 2-2 and Pittsburgh at 1-3. But Baltimore, they're still Baltimore, and Pittsburgh looks like perhaps they finally got some things worked out. The North may be the division to watch this season. We've always talked about the South.
Right.
There might be some bias there. We were both in the South, at least for a little bit. You were there. And, the East last season was kind of the division to talk about. But now the North might be the season to watch. Queen City still has all of their divisional games pending, though. Vancouver also has all of their games out west still pending ahead on the schedule, but they're currently up top of the West along with newcomer Washington, like we talked about. These next few weeks are going to be crucial for both of these teams. but this game could be the one that kickstarts some momentum for one of them to keep on going forward and winning games. So will Queen City continue to find ways to win, or is Vancouver going to continue to assert their dominance over their opponents and possibly go 4-0 for the first time since season 14? Talk about Queen City.
Yeah, so and Queen City has been the surprise of the season thus far.
For sure.
After going 0-12 and is already one win away from their entire, a win total that they had this season prior to that, right? So they're about to meet the actual win total they had in the previous 2 seasons. So it's kind of crazy to say because not very many teams go 0-12 and go winless, but they did a complete turnaround, and they had a very impressive win last week with beating Albuquerque after being down 21-0. They come back to win 24-21, 24 unanswered points by them. Look, and the offense, the production is not going to wow anybody in any way what they do offensively, right? But they have produced and got just enough to get them their 3 wins, right?
Yes.
A lot of their wins have been really tight games, 1-score games, and everything else, like that. So quarterback Michael Brown is number 2 in passing TDs, though. So he's being pretty efficient with what he's choosing, who to throw the ball to, when to throw it, and everything else. He's playing at a really high level right now. Offense as a whole is about middle of the road, right? But they are making it happen to the tune of a 3-1 record right now. So, and they also come in as an offense with the 5th fewest turnovers in the SFL. So if we're looking at the offense, hey, look, they're one of these offenses I think that you actually see, in the league where, hey, look, if our defense gives us a shot, we're going to score the points we need to get ourselves ahead of. And we saw last week, hey, they were down 21-0. I'm like, game's over. I turned it off.
Oh, yeah, I was done.
Next thing you know, I'm like, what? Wait, they won? I'm
what do you mean?
Yeah,
What do you mean they won?
Happened? 20, what happened? I'm like, did Albuquerque end up in a, falling in a hole and disappearing or something? No, they didn't. They just come out of half, made the adjustment that they needed. It was actually 21-3 at half, but they came back. And guess what? They ended up, running it up on them. They were down 18 points, run up and shut out the opposing offense.
Defensively, for Queen City, it's kind of similar to what you were just talking about with the offense. They're kind of middle of the road statistically, but I mean, you got to look at last week's game. They were able to shut down and just completely shut out one of the highest scoring teams in the league in the second half of last week.
And that's the crazy thing is that Albuquerque is number 1 in the league in points scored throughout the league
Not in the
right
second
now.
Half.
Right, but they did nothing in the second half. So when you look at it, like, hey, look, man, they're winning at a high clip and putting up a ton of points. But last week proved that they can play with some of the best in the league. So when you look at that, it's like, oh man, like, do they still have it? Now, today's going to be a huge test for them as well.
For sure.
But look, and it's led by their linebacker, Jasad Grackleflint.
The Grackleflint.
So he's awesome, who leads the team in tackles. So they have something brewing special, I think, right now. But can they keep it going? And look, we'll have the rest of the season to kind of figure out and find out if they can sustain what they've started out over their first 4 games. But I think they have something brewing, and if they keep that thing going and keep getting better, we might see something special from them.
We will see. Listen, we're going to find out, on this game of the week on Saturday, right? Because the Vancouver Legion, they're continuing to win convincingly this season through the 3 games that they've played. They've been winning each game by at least 2 scores. This is the Vancouver of old. It's not the Vancouver of last season.
Right. And I say, like, a lot of people in recent memory are going to think about, hey, how Vancouver kind of been struggling, even though they still had won some divisions in recent memory, right? But they haven't been what we've seen them before, right? They are ranked top 9 in all offensive categories, along with being number 2 in the scoring offense. 34 points a game on offense that they score.
Great.
4 different players have carried the ball for the Vancouver Legion, which includes their quarterback, Michael Brown, Ike McBride, the running back, Mateo Pravado, their fullback, and the super middle schooler himself, Pseudo Nakai, all collectively have 9 total touchdowns collectively between, all the people who run the ball, which is second in the SFL right now. So when they're getting the ball to hand, they're actually putting it in the end zone in the run game. The passing game has been solid as well, and they rank 6th in passing with wide receivers like Nick Lockett, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, and the Hall of Famer, the Canadian Brett Killian, right?
We love you, Brett. I saw you in the chat. We love you. We want you here.
So look, and they got Lili Nakai also at wide receiver doing good things as well. Look, This looks like, as you mentioned, the Vancouver Legion of old.
Mm-hmm.
Well-rounded and a tough offense to stop. And if they're going to keep rolling and putting up those type of offensive numbers, I don't know who can stop them.
Yeah, especially with their defense, too. You want to talk about statistics. This defense ranks number 1 in 4 of the 6 major defensive categories.
And it's unreal. Vancouver's number 1 in point and scoring defense,
Yeah.
allowing 5 points a game. The rush defense is number 1. 39 yards a game that they're allowing. Total defense, they allow under 200 yards. It's 199, almost like we're trying to sell somebody 199, but it's not. Guess what? They're allowing under 200 yards per game. That's number 1. And also in takeaways. They're 9th in takeaways at number 1. They also have 6 different defenders with at least 1 interception on the back end. They know how to take the ball away and, picking it off. And defensive end, Achilles Papadopoulos is number 2 in sacks, 4.5 on the season so far through the 3 games, and he has just been dominating offensive linemen. They are looking scary good right now. If this keeps up, look out SFL. Now, I think one of the best defenses in the league we saw last season was yours, with you and Ramos put together.
Yeah.
I do think it's something that teams need to start making notice. They're going to have to start game planning to see how they can get past this defense because the number they're putting up, it's something that people are going to have to be, prep for. If they don't prep for it, they can be looking at a loss.
Yeah, I would agree. And here's the thing with Queen City, with how they played last week and how they've played all season long, it's like I firmly want to feel like Buffalo is back. And we'll get into our picks later, But, man, listen, you just took on Albuquerque and you beat them. That I don't think anybody gave them the chance to do that. I know we didn't in our picks. We were wrong in most of them, though. So, what do we know? But, man, to beat Albuquerque – and then the very next week, it's like, oh, by the way, go up against probably one of the top 5 teams in the league now. It's like,
and a lot of people, if I'm going to say Queen City, Ring City, if you know, they might be having some shades of that happening for them this season.
They very well may. And if they're able to take down Vancouver this week, it's going to be okay. I guess Queen City's one of the top 5 teams in the league. So we'll see what they're able to do. All right, let's get into my offensive player spotlight of the week. I guess we haven't left week 4 totally in the rearview mirror yet. We're going to go and highlight a couple of players. For me, last week, I don't think anybody had a finer offensive performance than Lexington's quarterback, Kenny Slider. He is my offensive spotlight player of the week. Look at these stats. 14 of 22, 277 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 pick, a 128 quarterback rating. Insane. Let's look at some of these plays. Starting off a 17-yard touchdown pass to Alex West, hitting him right over the middle in this perfect, great play, right? That was just the beginning. 10-yard touchdown pass to Deion James. Look at this one. Kenny Slider stands in the pocket, gets laid out, but is able to stand in there and get that pass. Then he follows it up with this. # throw it deep to the tight end, 46 yards over the middle to DJ Bandit. Gave him the halftime player of the game honors right there. You see his stats, 8 of 13, 155 yards, had 3 touchdowns. That's a great stat line for a whole game. But wait, there's more. 9-yard touchdown pass. Alexander West gets his 2nd touchdown of the day in the 3rd quarter. And then, of course, not to be outdone because you can't leave out the legend himself, Gabriel Manning. He wants to get involved in the 4th quarter, 26-yard touchdown pass. That's right. Count them. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. 5 touchdowns and a 128 quarterback rating. Listen, there were some players that had some really great offensive performances this week. Anybody that thinks that they did better than Kenny Slider, he brought the team to victory almost single-handedly in that one. He led his team to an impressive win over Baltimore in week 1. He followed that up by shutting out Oklahoma City in week 2. Week 3, they got shut out. So how does he respond? A 35-13 beatdown of Denver, and all of those points came from him throwing the ball through the air. It's only he's only 16th in pass attempts, right? Only 13th in completions. Middle of the road numbers. Yep. He's leading the league with 8 touchdown passes now after that 5 touchdown day and a top 3 quarterback rating through 4 games. His performance is also helping Alexander West put up all-star numbers. He's top 10 in receiving yards and 2nd in the league with 3 receiving touchdowns himself. Big game tonight for them against Albuquerque. You talked about Albuquerque being a top scoring team. They're going to need Kenny Slider to put up some more big numbers himself, as Albuquerque is not really known for their pass defense. We'll see if Kenny Slider is able to maybe not repeat this performance, but have something close.
Yeah, look, I can't disagree. The way he did it and how efficient he was with it, right? Like you said, with the minimal pass attempts and the way he put up the numbers and hitting his guys where it needs to be, a complete opposite of what the game was like before. I doubted him. I do believe I think I picked against him that
Yeah.
last week, and I got burned right here. And they looked really really good, and they look like they're finally putting it all together and to kind of get it kind of back on track. So
Yeah.
yes, everything just looks real good.
Honorable mention for me this week has to be Charleston's quarterback, Iman Kopak. He put up 445 yards of his own, 3 touchdowns, and had 0 interceptions. Love to see that. A 122.3 quarterback rating. In fact, when I first was going through the stats on the week, that's who I came across first, and I was like, Iman Kopak. He's the one. He's, those are big. 445 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. But he couldn't get his team to win. They lost to Florida. It was a close one. He still put up some good points, but not quite enough to get that dub and 5 touchdowns. A 5-touchdown day. I don't care if he had a pick or not. 5 touchdowns. Sold. Kenny Slider, congratulations. Offensive player spotlight of the week. Let's talk about your defensive player spotlight. Who do you got?
So for me, my defensive player spotlight is Minnesota defensive end number 99, Mark Mello.
Mr. Mello.
He had such a good game last week with 6 tackles, 6 TFLs, and 6 sacks. It's a thing of beauty. And you're going to see here, he did it in multiple different ways right here, right? He did it just not really quitting on a play and kind of getting himself around there and actually pulling in the sack, right? And that's just sack number 1. We got many more to go. We still got 5 more to go. And you can see right here how he's starting to outmatch, and it's a huge mismatch for the left tackle right there. And here is one where he just doesn't quit on the play, right? Gets there, gets blocked, and guess what?
That's speed.
His defense kind of helps him out in terms of, hey, look, let's keep it in the pocket. The coverage was right, and he was able to get there and get that sack. But this is where it kind of takes a turn. When he's standing up on the end, he just blows right past the actual the left tackle right there. It's like they don't even see him. And what do they do? Of course you give him there. You got 3 sacks in the first half, and there's just 3 more to go. We already know it, right? He does it again right here so fast, off the ball, coming right around. They had no answer for it. He says, I'm going to keep doing it. And it's credit also not only to Mark Mello being as fast as he is, but the defensive scheme right here and how they blitz.
Yes.
They blitz right on the inside of him, allowed him to stay on the outside with the speed and the stuff right here. You can see right here that's going to come in, and they're going to blitz right here. Boom. Right there, the linebacker blitzing, keeps him free on the outside. He's got too much speed for the left tackle to the tune of 6 sacks right there. And this is the thing. After being held to 0 sacks the previous 2 weeks with minimal impact on the game at all, Mark Mello decides to unleash his best ever career game last week with 6 sacks.
Yeah.
And as we just seen on the film, it showed his versatility in being able to rush the passer. He can get down in a 3-point stance and muscle through it and actually never give up on a play and get to the quarterback. And from standing up with unique blitz packages that the defensive coordinator put together for them. So look, and you seen right there, he's so fast and quick off the snap. The left tackle had no answer for him, and I don't know why Chicago didn't even slide help that way for him to be able to pick it up. Hey, just dump your running back on that side to chip him a little bit just to give your quarterback a little more time, but they just didn't do none of it. Thought the left tackle had an answer, didn't. He was just way too fast. And he already has 8 sacks this season, leads the league, and he has already exceeded his sack total from the last 2 seasons combined. So congratulations to Mark Mello. The way he played last week, no one, I have no honorable mentions because I want him to have the spotlight all on his own today because he earned it. 6 sacks, you do something like that. I mean, we were talking about even because we called it. That was a game where we're like, are we going to have to start checking the record books to see how close he is?
Did.
Like, and the record was what, 8? I think 8 or 8.5 by Easy Temple. So
he hit 6 early on too. I mean, I think it was still 3rd quarter, maybe early 4th, and we're like, he's still got a good chance here.
It was something impressive. We haven't seen a dominating defensive lineman play like that in a very long time. And he showed, with the interesting, like I said, the interesting blitz packages that they put in allowed him to be as dominant a player as he can be. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you think of like last season and the season before with Kevin Brackett, who was playing at the outside linebacker position, and the pressure he's able to get on opposing quarterbacks. You have a player like Mark Mello doing it from the defensive line position, your good old-fashioned classic defensive end, and still able to get home like that with that sort of speed. And to your point, like in the championship game, that's what we had to do. Ray Bentley is known for his running. In the championship game, we said, block that man. Like, you got to keep Jordan Sipe on his feet
Right.
because otherwise he's going to die and then Larry Love's going to come in and it's going to be bad.
I remember showing a coworker of mine today that film. He's like, why is he so fast?
I know.
Because he's that good.
Yeah.
Mark Mello was that good last week.
All right, let's go over the Streets Are Talking community vote. We've got the Week 4 fan voting results. 68 of you voted on the Streets Are Talking community poll, and for once so far, I mean, we've only had a few shows where we've done this community vote and our own offensive and defensive player spotlight, but the community agreed with us. Maybe this is the week that we do know what we're talking about. We might get some picks right.
Last week we were way wrong on our picks.
Way wrong. We were wrong on everything.
With the fans and everything else.
Kenny Slider was the offensive player vote. He got 20 of the votes, 30.3%. Iman Kopech also came in second, so I even got the honorable mention right.
Yeah, you sure did.
And BB Blitz came in at third with 12 of the votes. Defensively, Mark Mello did get 67.6% of the votes, 46 of them. I mean, it's practically unanimous at that point. Jason Peace, he got 8 votes for picking off Jordan Sipe twice. Thanks, Jason. And Danny Stinson with 5 votes, 7.4%.
Danny Stinson sealed the game last week for them. I know that's why he got that right there. Deserving. He was my guy last week.
Yep.
I picked him last week at defense. So he earned it. I think he earned his 5 votes.
Yeah. No, for sure. All right. Let's talk about the game that's coming up next. Got the Battle of the Carolinas. Carolina Skyhawks at the Charleston Predators. The Battle of the Carolinas is nearing its 20th meeting. This one will actually be their 19th. The Skyhawks currently lead this series 10-8. Carolina is in prime position right now to extend that winning record. They're off to a great start this season at 3-1. It's their best start since season 11. I bet you half the people, if not more, watching this show, watching this game later, weren't even here in season 11. That was a long time ago.
I remember season 11, and I knew there was a flaw in the Carolina team, and I couldn't beat them, and they trashed us. They beat us bad.
Yeah. And they ended up going 6-0 to start that season back in season 11 before they finally lost their first game. Charleston, on the other hand, they once again find themselves at 0-4. They were in the same position back in season 22. Ultimately, they finished that season 5-7, and they missed the postseason. The East Division, this is what we were talking about way at the beginning. East Division was the craziest division to watch last season. Even down to the final week of the regular season, there was a chance that all 5 teams would make the playoffs. Not quite looking that way this season with Charleston and Nashville both at 0-4. Atlanta's not far off. They've only got 1 win. They're at 1-3. Carolina and Florida are up top at 3-1 each. Carolina's going to be looking to keep up with Florida with a win over Charleston tonight if they can do it, and possibly even take the top spot for themselves undisputed. Florida's going to be facing Nashville this week, but Florida is going to be without their star quarterback, Ron Cochran, who is inactive this week. Carolina then has a key matchup against Florida next week, and it remains to be seen if Cochran will be back for that one or not. So there's a good opportunity for Carolina to really just kind of skyrocket themselves in the standings here in the East, leaving everybody else in the dust. Charleston, they need to get their season turned around, and they need to do it now. The best that they can do at this point would be 8-4, and that's if they win out. They have to win every game. So, and really, I mean, let's face it, getting to 8-4 is pretty much the minimum that you need to guarantee yourself a playoff appearance.
100%.
So effectively, their playoffs start today on week 5. It's tough. But listen, they've got the tools to do it. They've got multiple players on offense who are currently playing at an all-star level. We just talked about third-season quarterback Iman Kopech and what he has done. He leads the league in completions, yards, and it's top 5 in touchdowns. So this team can do it. They've come close to doing it. They just haven't done it yet. 0-4. They've got to get it turned around. So talk about Carolina and what they need to do.
So Carolina is winners of 3 straight after getting shut out in week 1, which is kind of pretty impressive. Hey, look, they had a bad week 1, turned around, won, and ended up winning 3 straight. Won last week in dramatic fashion versus a very good Fort Worth team.
Yes.
After nearly blowing a lead late in week 3. We were calling that game.
We were.
And it was so weird of a game. It was kind of a hodgepodge, a mess, and they almost lost it, right?
Yep.
So, but everyone knows Carolina and me, we have such a complicated relationship. We love each other, then we hate each other, then we kiss and make up, And then we just repeat that over and over
It's
and
a
over
vicious
again.
cycle.
It's the whole thing, right? They are
a gross
team,
cycle too. But
they are a team who knows what they want, right?
Yes.
It's without which is the wins. But what makes it so it also makes it so complicated because to do it, so it becomes this hop. Hey, we know what we want, but we go about
let's
this.
go
weird
about it the hardest way we can.
Yeah, the hardest
out.
way possible.
You know
to do
what?
it.
Let's get shut out in week 1.
And not only that, it's like, hey, look, let's just trash us almost every week because then we get motivated. Look, their offense is meh, right? And they leave a guy like me wanting more, especially in the passing game where former MVP Marcus Dunhill is completing less than 50% of his passes on the season. Look, and it also shows in the data as they only convert 31% of their third downs into first down.
Yep.
Now, looking at the offense, their bright spot is running back Raleigh
Once
Quintero,
again,
who is 7th in rushing, but they can't rely on him solely. I know they got Harish back there and all that stuff, but who knows when he's going to die from one run to the next. But look, they need to get that passing game to come alive and actually get back to, Marcus Dunhill to his MVP days, right? I know he's been journeyed, half retired for a little bit and then came back. And if they can have that come alive, I do believe they keep stacking those wins,
right?
Like we've seen them do before.
Yeah, for sure. And so far, it's really been their defenses have been keeping them in games by giving their offense extra chances to possess the football. Same thing that Ramos did with the Mexico City defense for me last week. Bailed out the offense a whole lot by being number 1 in takeaways. Currently, Carolina number 1 in takeaways.
Yeah, so, and the defense is led by the NFL leader in tackles and Danny Stinson, the linebacker who won our award for defensive spotlight of the week last week. Look, and who has his squad as the number 9 total defense in the league right now, along with the number 4 scoring defense, only surrendering 15 points per game. Just like Vancouver, they too have 6 defenders with interceptions on the back end. They are playing at an extremely high level defensively. They just need their offense to catch up so they can kind of complete that full package like they know they want it. They want it. Just pull it together. I love you guys. You know I do. But then I'm going to hate you, and then we're going to kiss and make out, and then we're going to do it all over again. So
and nobody wants to see you make out with anybody on Charleston.
So let's get it all together so we don't have to continue this vicious cycle.
Yes.
Let's get married.
Oh. Our first proposal on the Matt Wilson SFL kickoff show. Guess we'll have to wait to see what they say.
The convention. Go to the convention. You'll see something interesting.
Whew, okay.
Surprise.
Now I'm a little terrified of the convention. But hey, we'll see what Lakeman's like, wait, what did you just say?
Yep.
100%. Christian Bachagalupi, he's Skippy's hard passing on that one.
She's hating on me. Should come around.
Yeah, we'll see.
Should come around.
Let's talk about Charleston. It's not the Charleston team that we've come to know. New quarterback Iman Kopech, he's the league leader in passing, but like we talked about, has not equaled wins.
It's just not equal wins. Look, and they do have quality people like you mentioned, right? They have Iman Kopech playing really good. They also have, I think, it's the ultimate mismatch in wide receiver Doug Britton. He's so versatile in the return game and everything else.
Their tight end too.
Xavier Solomon is doing really well as well, right? Having great seasons thus far. Both of them are top 10 in pass catchers. But again, they do not have no wins right now, so it's not equating to any wins. The reason is the run game. They are third to last in the league, averaging 52 yards a game on the ground. They're extremely one-dimensional, and it's tough to win games when you're relying on one side of your offense to to produce all that yardage and everything else. So they got to get better on offense.
I'm just reading Christian's comment. Three's company, Skippy and Curtis. I'm going to move on from that one. Let's talk about Charleston's defense. They're not much better than the offense, how they've been performing statistically. They've just been giving up tons of points, tons of yards.
Yeah, look, and they give up 29 points.
29,
points a game. They are third worst in the run game. It's for stop and run. And it's not much to say, other than they have to improve along with the offense to win games. Because look, and we know they had a decent amount of turnover and everything else, and maybe that's part of it, right? Because with the current trend for we're literally we're over like a quarter of the season through the season. It's not looking good. They have to correct it, and they have to correct it now.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see if they can do it tonight against a so far very powerful Carolina team. So the Battle of the Carolinas getting underway in just about 10 minutes time. The chat has absolutely lost their minds. You just sent them into a frenzy. Skippy's
they
claiming that
short-circuited.
they already have a third and a backup to the third, which I don't want to know anything about that. And Curtis is like, wait, we do? Meanwhile, Brett Solberg says, I'm the third and the backup to the third. Y'all are weird. You're weird. They're weird. Y'all are weird.
It's not weird. It's totally not
okay,
weird.
We'll just move on from all
Totally
this.
not weird.
Let's get into the picks, shall we? Hey, I actually got us all tied back up. Oh, there we go. We can make that into something weird too. Anyway, I'm 24-18. You're 24-18 in the picks. Now, I went 5-5 last week, which was bad, but you know what? You were worse at 4-6. Woof. Our picks were terrible. We clearly don't know what we're talking about. So on that note, let's get into this week's picks and see who else we can be wrong about. Let's start off with Lexington at Albuquerque. The game's starting at 8:15 tonight. Who do you got?
Like as we talked about Albuquerque, right? They struggled to win on the road. They were on the road last week. Maybe that's part of why they lost. And Queen City came back, played well, but they just short-circuited the second half. But you know what? They're playing at home this week. Lexington looked really good last week.
They did.
I was teetering on whatever else. We're going to find out tonight who wins. I have to take Albuquerque because they just know how to win at home.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree. I'm going to also take Albuquerque in this one, after just saying, hey, Lexington quarterback Kenny Slider, you're my offensive player of the week, and I think you're going to lose the next week. It was tough, but, Albuquerque, they just don't lose at home, and until they start losing it, until somebody can start beating them at home, it's going to be hard to pick against them. Same thing with Baltimore back in the day. Not so much now, but, a couple seasons ago, betting against Baltimore at home was a ridiculous proposition.
It was a bad bet.
It's a bad bet. Baltimore would win, and they would win almost every single time. So that's your pick. That's my pick. Albuquerque for both of us. Mexico City at Fort Worth. You bet against me last week, and I was so demoralized that I lost because of it. So I personally blame you. Who do you got this week?
I stated why I felt that they actually,
you were right.
You guys tough, and it actually worked out for me. I thought I was going to lose that one, but I didn't, honestly. So here we are. Now, one thing I know about Mexico City is that I cannot bet against a motivated Mike Dag's team. I hasn't seen him this motivated since motivated. For like the last.
I'm fired up, man.
So now he is extremely motivated. And I don't bet against that man because what he did when he had extremely motivated, he won a championship. So now I feel sorry for Fort Worth. It may not be a blowout, but Mike Daggs are going to take his offense, and with Ramos' already elite defense, and they're going to go into Fort Worth and take down the Toros, and they're going to just pick up back where they left off.
Yeah, well, obviously we'll see what happens. I'm never going to bet against Mexico City, so Mexico City is, of course, my pick. No surprise there. But yeah, some work was put in this week. Some changes were tweaked. Some things were done. Some sims were ran. Mexico City, we're going to go on the road. We're going to get that win. Queen City at Vancouver. Who do you got?
Queen City's a team that I love. I love seeing people be bad and then all of a sudden just turn around and be that underdog, almost Cinderella type story. But Vancouver, oh man, they are playing at such a high level. Vintage, Vancouver Legion. Andy Hamilton's got them rolling, and I know the super middle schoolers got some stuff to do with that stuff too. But man, they're looking really good. I cannot pick against Vancouver at home. Vancouver.
Yeah, I got you. Listen, I love me some Buffalo. I want to vote for the black and green every week if I can, except for when they're playing Mexico City. Then I got to pick the red, white, and green. But Vancouver is just playing too darn good right now. They're at home. Queen City. Listen, obviously, they went and figured some things out last week when they were down by 21 and said, I'm going to fight my way back into it. And not only claw my way back into it, but get the win. But going on the road the next week, other side of the continent, and you're playing against Vancouver, who's red hot. Vancouver, I think, is going to get the win in this one. Bossier City at Indy.
Now, I know I was on Indy bandwagon, but Chad left, can't beat him, join him. That's what he did. He's in Carolina now. So, but look, Bossier City done impressive things with their free agent acquisitions and what they brought in to that organization. And most importantly, they brought in, I think one of the most motivational players of our SFL generation in terms of Johnny Pickler's got that team going good. They've done good things. Johnny Pickler on that team, I do think they're going to continue to roll, and they're gaining my respect. I might actually acknowledge them as a team in Louisiana now if they keep on doing this stuff.
Ooh.
It's pretty impressive. So I think Bossier City goes into Indianapolis and wins that game.
Doug Day is so insistent that we say happy birthday to T to Queen that he super chatted it. So we arguably are contractually committed to say happy birthday to
Yeah.
T. Happy birthday, T.
Happy
Queen.
birthday, T.
$5 super chat from Doug. Doug, I was going to get to it anyway. You didn't have to do anything. But
the better half of the days.
Oh, for sure.
T
Yeah.
makes you a better person. It makes you a better player. Doug, let's
Listen,
be honest.
I'm just going to throw this out there.
Stick to tour managing.
We are now only $95 away in super chats from us singing happy birthday to T to Queen. So somebody make it happen. Baltimore at the Bomb Pops. Who do you got?
I can't take the
I know,
bomb
they're
pops
not the
because
bomb
they're
pops.
just not the bomb
Not
pops,
the
and they
bomb
just don't have it. I don't know what it is. Baltimore's playing too good until Chicago actually shows me something, because they showed us absolutely nothing so far. I can't pick them, especially against a Baltimore team who's known for scoring a lot of points, especially the last few seasons. I got to take Baltimore.
Ty Patak and his lovely wife, Chelsea, are two of my favorite people in the league. I want to pick Chicago every time just so I can support my friends. You got to freaking do something, though. Baltimore, they're down. They're 2-2, but they're not out. And Chicago just hasn't shown that they can get it done yet. I think they're going to lose this one at home to Baltimore. Nashville at Florida. Who do you got?
So I know that Ron Cochran is inactive this week, but Nashville just ain't got it. I don't know if we took it out of them with the shirts we wear, demoralized them, or whatever.
You were so mean with your attire.
Yes, I am. But you know what? Our fans love it. We saw it outside the stadium. It gave me a lot of money in my pockets, allowed me to retire. But look, they're going to go into Florida, and they're going to lose, even without Ron Cochran. There's no other way about it, because you know what? Florida just knows how to put together a winning game plan. And guess what? They're going to have their team prepared, even minus their Hall of Fame quarterback. I do think they just win it at home.
Charlie Bullet Beletsky. That's my analysis. Florida's going to get the win. Denver at Pittsburgh.
This is a tough one for me, right? Because I'm kind of running. I'm like, look, they was really impressive against Baltimore. One, convincingly, Pittsburgh did. Denver, I thought they really had something going, everything, and they've been competitive. I'm going with Pittsburgh. So if you guys lose, it's my fault. I won't ever pick you again. Why I pick you? Because you look so impressive. It seems like you guys figured something out, right? And I know some things behind the scenes, right? I talked to those guys and everything else. They made some changes, and it's worked for them. So, look, they did some coaching. They did a lot of prep and everything else, and it worked. And Mike Twinskew was a huge part of their success. Ace Finnick was a quarterback last week that I expect them to be each and every week, and it was something, a thing of beauty for them. So I think Pittsburgh takes it, wins it at home.
Ditto. I mean, Pittsburgh, I think, is going to get the win at home. Denver started off strong. They haven't looked quite so strong going through. Pittsburgh started off slow. Now they look really good. I think they're going to continue that trend. We've picked every game the same. This is getting ridiculous. Houston at Washington.
Well, look, everybody knows I love me some Houston. I picked them last week to beat the Aztecs, and my kids on that team. But I really do think I finally started buying into Robert Thump and what they got going on in Washington. Washington's at home. We're going to see how Houston's going to do. I love you, Damon. You know I do. I love everything about you and everything. I just think Washington might have that edge at home this week. I'm picking them.
Finally, we pick one different. Maybe I'm biased because I just got beat by Houston, but when a team beats me like that, not that it wasn't a blowout, it was only a 3-point loss, but man, they had me figured out. That's for sure. I think obviously they know what they're doing, and when you look at the teams side by side statistically, Washington is doing great things, but Houston is doing even better things in almost every single category, and it's honestly not even close. That 3-0 record, it's like, not too sure, because Houston is arguably, in my opinion, still the better team right now. I think Houston gets the win. OKC at Los Angeles.
Now, I think this game was somewhat of a toss-up right here, even though we know what OKC is in LA. LA hasn't lived up to the potential they had, but they haven't done anything since week one, really, OKC. So I have to take Rochelle and the Lycans. Why? Because I just think they're a little bit better than OKC is.
I'm going to go with Los Angeles as well. I said it earlier on in the season. I'm going to say it every week until Oklahoma City shows me that they can win a game. I just don't think they have the roster to beat any other team in the league. I'm going to pick against them every time until they prove me wrong. Los Angeles. Last and not least, Sin City at Arizona.
Yeah, Sin City looked really good, and they forced me into pick them, and then they laid an egg, and it was terrible. So I'm never picking you again. So I'm taking Arizona, and what we won't see is a pick six from Eddie, but we might see a pick six just because of how we know Scar Patterson. If he's relied on to throw the ball, we might see a pick for someone else. It just won't be beat from Eddie Gage. I'm picking Arizona.
I will not bet against Eddie Gage at home, especially against a team that's still relatively new and figuring things out. I think Arizona gets the win. That is our picks in this one. And that's all the time that we have for the Week 5 edition of the Matt Wilson SFL Kickoff Show. I'm Mike. He's Gerald. Ron Haynes, thank you for the videos. Cameron Irvine for our production. We've got Carolina at Charleston coming up in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere. We will see you there.